Part 1. Sophie was a 28-year-old architect from Berlin. She had always dreamed of visiting Vienna, but work kept her busy. One morning, her boss told her to attend a conference in Vienna. She couldn't believe her luck. Finally, a chance to see the city. She packed her suitcase quickly and booked a train. The next day, she sat by the window, watching the German countryside pass by. She felt excited and a little nervous. At the Vienna station, she took a deep breath and smiled. The city looked beautiful, full of charm and history. She took a taxi to her hotel near the city center. After checking in, she decided to take a short walk. The streets were lively and musicians played on every corner. She stopped at a small cafe and ordered coffee with apple strudel. The waiter smiled and spoke in German with a soft Austrian accent. Sophie realized she was about to experience something special, and this was just the beginning. Part 2. The next morning, Sophie attended the conference. The building was elegant and the speakers were impressive. During a coffee break, she met Lucas, an architect from Prague. They talked about design, travel, and favorite cities. Lucas invited her to join him later for a walk in Vienna. Sophie agreed, happy to have company. That evening, they met near St. Stephen's Cathedral. The cathedral's beauty took her breath away. They walked along cobblestone streets, sharing stories. Lucas showed her hidden courtyards and old bookstores. They ended up in a small wine tavern, tasting local wines. Sophie felt relaxed and inspired. She realized Vienna was even more magical than she had imagined. When they said goodbye, Lucas gave her his number. "Call me if you'd like a tour tomorrow," he said with a smile. Sophie returned to her hotel, excited for what the next day might bring. Part 3. The next morning, Sophie texted Lucas. He replied quickly and suggested meeting in front of the museum. They spent hours exploring the Kunsthistorisches Museum. The paintings and sculptures amazed them both. Afterward, they walked to Schönbrunn Palace. The gardens were full of flowers and fountains. They climbed up to the gloriette and admired the city view. Lucas told her about Viennese traditions and local life. They laughed a lot and took many photos. For lunch, they stopped at a small restaurant and tried Wiener Schnitzel. Sophie couldn't believe how delicious it was. In the afternoon, they visited the famous Naschmarkt. Sophie tasted cheeses, chocolates, and spices. As the sun set, they sat by the Danube River. Sophie thanked Lucas for the unforgettable day. She knew this trip was becoming something much more than work. Part 4. The next day was her last day in Vienna. Sophie woke up early and decided to explore alone. She visited the Belvedere Palace and admired Klimt's paintings. The famous painting, The Kiss, was even more beautiful in person. She sat in the palace garden, thinking about her journey. Then her phone buzzed. A message from Lucas. "Would you like to meet for dinner tonight?" he asked. She smiled and answered, "I'd love to." In the evening, they met at a traditional Huriger. The place was warm and cozy with live music. They shared stories, laughed, and drank sweet Austrian wine. At one moment, there was silence, but a comfortable one. Lucas looked at her and said, "I hope we meet again." Sophie felt something special in his words. The night ended with a walk under the stars. Vienna had given her more than she ever expected. Part 5. The next morning, Sophie packed her suitcase. Her train back to Berlin was leaving at noon. Before leaving, she stopped at the cafe from her first day. She ordered coffee and apple strudel once more. The waiter recognized her and smiled. Outside, Vienna seemed calm and bright. She took one last walk through the city center. Memories of laughter and discovery filled her heart. At the station, she felt a mix of joy and sadness. She texted Lucas. "Thank you for everything," he replied. "Safe travels. See you soon." Her heart skipped a beat. On the train, she watched the Austrian countryside pass by. She thought about the city, the art, the music, and Lucas. A short business trip had turned into something unforgettable. She knew Vienna would call her back one day. Part 6. Back in Berlin, life felt different. Sophie returned to her office but couldn't stop thinking about Vienna. Her colleagues noticed her bright mood. "Did something happen?" one of them asked. Sophie just smiled and said, "It was magical." In the evening, she looked through photos from the trip. She and Lucas messaged each other almost every day. They shared little moments of their daily lives. One afternoon, Lucas surprised her with a call. "I have a project in Berlin next month," he said. Her heart jumped with excitement. "That's amazing," she replied. The days passed slowly, but finally, the day came. At the train station in Berlin, she waited nervously. Then she saw him, smiling with his suitcase. Vienna was far away, but something beautiful had just begun. Part 7, ending. For the next few weeks, Sophie and Lucas explored Berlin together. They visited museums, parks, and cozy cafes. Sophie showed him her favorite hidden spots in the city. One evening, they sat by the Spree River, watching the sunset. Lucas held her hand and said, "I never expected this." Sophie smiled. "Neither did I." Their friendship grew stronger each day. Eventually, it turned into something more. Before Lucas returned to Prague, they made a promise. They would meet again in Vienna or Berlin or somewhere new. Months passed, and they kept their promise, sometimes in Prague, sometimes in Berlin, sometimes in Vienna. Their lives became a beautiful dance between cities. Sophie realized that a short trip had changed her forever. It wasn't just Vienna she found. It was also love, and that love would always lead her back to Europe's heart.